In the heart of the Cold War, when the world teetered on the edge of chaos, the US had a plan so outrageous, it sounds like a sci-fi thriller. They wanted to nuke the moon. Yes, you heard that right, but why? Stay tuned, because this story will blow your mind. The year is the late 1950s. The Cold War is transforming into a tense standoff between the United States and the Soviet Union. Picture two moody adolescents trying to outsmart each other. Both possess nuclear weapons and hydrogen bombs. With the threat of nuclear fallout looming over Earth, the stakes have never been higher, especially as the next frontier looms above them, space. In October 1957, the Soviet Union sent shockwaves around the globe by launching Sputnik 1, the first human-made satellite to orbit our planet. This milestone sent a clear message. The Soviets were leading the space race. In the US, panic ensued. What if they fell too far behind? What if they lost not just the space race, but also global prestige? In December 1957, the Americans made their move. They attempted to launch their satellite, Project Vanguard. But tragically, the rocket didn't just fail. It exploded in a fiery ball right before the cameras, broadcasting America's humiliation worldwide. This spectacle demanded a bold response. America needed something extraordinary to regain their footing. Enter an idea so bizarre, so audacious, that it could only come from the height of the Cold War. The US Air Force conceived a plan to detonate a nuclear weapon on the moon. Now, how did that come about? By May 1958, the project was in full swing, helmed by physicist Leonard Reiffel, who would later serve as the deputy director of the Apollo program. His directive was clear: figure out what a nuclear explosion on the moon would look like. Would it be destroyed? Would it be visible from Earth? What would happen after the detonation? Reiffel recalled that this plan had a political motive. It was all about creating a wow moment that would showcase American technological superiority. Imagine gazing up at the moon and witnessing a gigantic mushroom cloud and brilliant streaks of light. An event that could practically change the course of the space race. But this plan wasn't a solo effort. Reiffel assembled a team at the Armor Research Foundation in Chicago, including the likes of Gerard Kuiper, often dubbed the founder of modern planetary science, and none other than Carl Sagan, the legendary astronomer. Together, from May 1958 to January 1959, they examined numerous critical questions. What type of explosive would create the desired effect? After much deliberation, they settled on a hydrogen bomb, much more destructive than the atomic bombs dropped on Japan. The plan was to position the bomb on the moon's terminator line, the imaginary boundary separating the moon's dark side from its sunlit side. Why there? Because the explosion would produce a maximum visual impact from Earth, aiming to dazzle spectators. In June 1959, Reiffel submitted his findings to the US Air Force in a paper titled A Study of Lunar Research Flights. While it seems lengthy, the Americans had a snappy name for it: Project A119. The team concluded that the operation was technically feasible, meaning it could actually be pulled off. The report detailed 3 objectives: scientific, military, and political. To maximize scientific gain, NASA would place 3 identical scientific instruments on the moon, collecting data on temperature and composition. This would establish a baseline to compare readings before, during, and after the explosion. But militarily, striking the moon would symbolize unprecedented military power, a show of strength that was hard to overlook. So, how would they transport a bomb 380,000 kilometers to the moon? The logistics remained shrouded in mystery, but experts believe an intercontinental ballistic missile would be the delivery method. Interestingly, the US tested its Titan rocket in February 1959. According to Reiffel, they could strike a target with only a 2-mile margin of error, not shabby for such a distance. However, let's be clear, The underlying goal wasn't about science or military strategy. It was a political stunt aimed at impressing the Kremlin and capturing the world's attention. But why would scientists align with such a controversial plan? The 1950s. America was a place where scientific research was tightly tethered to government policy. Dissenters faced serious consequences. Just look at Robert Oppenheimer, director of the Manhattan Project. When he voiced his opposition to hydrogen weapons, he was ostracized and pursued by the government. Returning to our story, Reiffel and his team submitted their report to the US Air Force. The question loomed, would they actually go through with this drastic move to detonate the moon? Take a moment to look up at the moon tonight. It's untouched, isn't it? The fact that it remains as it is tells you everything. The plan never came to fruition. The precise reasons behind the abandonment of Project A119 remain a mystery. The US government has never fully declassified the associated documents. Instead, only excerpts have surfaced. Interestingly, the entire operation came to light somewhat accidentally. In 1959, Carl Sagan applied for a fellowship at Berkeley and mentioned Project A119 in his resume, inadvertently leaking state secrets. Yet nobody at Berkeley seemed to notice, until his biographer uncovered it decades later. Scientists have speculated on why the plan was shelved. Three main reasons often arise. 1. Technical feasibility. Believe it or not, the massive mushroom cloud depicted in project visuals would be impossible, as the moon has no atmosphere for dust and debris to interact with. Second mission failure. Risks. What if the missile detonated prematurely? An explosion in the atmosphere could release nuclear material back onto Earth. 3. Radioactivity concerns. Scientists were deeply worried about how a nuclear blast might alter the moon's composition. Lastly, let's add a fourth factor, common sense. The moon is, quite literally, out and about, far away in space. It's not there for the purpose of nuclear detonations. This mindset reflects the extent of the madness during the space race. It was all or nothing. And let's not forget, the US wasn't alone in ponderous nuclear plans. The Soviets had their own scheme, known as Project E4, which aimed to obliterate the moon during the summer of 1959. Yet, like their American counterparts, they too faced roadblocks and never got the green light. While the idea of blowing up the moon may seem absurd today, it eventually led to a significant realization: militarizing space is dangerous. Years later, in 1967, the United States and the Soviet Union signed the Outer Space Treaty, which prohibited nuclear weapons in space and stated that celestial bodies should only be used for peaceful purposes. This moment represented a shift in perspective regarding space exploration. Fast forward to the present. Just last week, India's Chandrayaan-3 lunar module made history by landing on the moon, not through military might, but via dedicated scientific achievement. This event captured the admiration of the world, contrasting starkly with the destructive plans of the past. So, while the chapter on Project A119 may seem closed, the conversation regarding the militarization of space continues. Countries are still working on advanced technologies that could escalate into conflict. China has actively developed anti-satellite weapons, while the US established a space force in 2019 under former President Donald Trump. It's evident that the ideas surrounding space and its potential militarization are still very much alive. Will we see another Project A119, perhaps directed at the Moon, Mars, or another cosmic target? The future remains uncertain. As we reflect on this absurd history, let's remember that the true essence of exploration goes beyond military power. It's about discovery, unity, and learning more about the universe we inhabit. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below. Share your thoughts on what you think the future holds for space exploration.